Our next education piece is around, should I buy property or shares? Remember, this is not a financial advice. However, I like to run some assumptions and why property outbeats actually shares in this scenario. Firstly, our assumption has always been that we are buying a property for $600,000 at an interest rate of 6%, which remains constant. We are starting with a rental position of $26,000 per year, which is 4.3% rental yield, and the rent is going up 5% per annum with a fixed expenses of $5,000 per annum as well. Now, we're also assuming in this scenario that your shares which you're investing in, you're using the same investment that you've actually done in property towards your shares too. So in property, for a $600,000 property, you have $180,000 that you've invested upfront, which is your 20% deposit plus 10% cost, which is another $60,000. So that's a total $180K. Plus you've got a holding cost over the 10-year period, which is assumed to be about $2,000 per annum, which is going to be $20,000 for a 10-year period. So that actually means that your total investment, cash investment to hold the property has been $200,000. We're going to assume in this example that you're using the same $200,000 where you've actually invested in shares from the very first get-go, and that money for you is growing at a rate of 10% per annum. So property growing at a rate of 7.19% per annum versus shares growing at a rate of 10%. So let's look at that comparison in detail. Here we go. So we are talking property at 7.18% growth rate, from 600,000 going to 1.2 million, your total investment being $200,000 over 10-year period, and your end value is 1.2 million. The profit in this case is going to be $496,000 if you were to sell that property before tax, which means your compound annual growth rate is 13.3%. Now compare the same amount of $200,000 invested, as I said, over 10-year period, but with a growth rate of 10%. In my previous video, I've done a detailed walkthrough of how you actually get a 13.3% CAGR in property, and you're most welcome to go back and watch that. I'm going to show you the details of shares investment. So let's assume you started with $180,000, which is the same amount of money we start in property, and that's your cash position, and that's growing at 10% in shares, which means that every then second, third, fourth, fifth, all the way up to 10th year, we are adding $2,000 into this investment or into your share portfolio, because that is your average cost for holding property too over the 10-year period. So we're assuming we're using the same cash position and we're adding that cumulatively over a period of time. But the growth rate has been 10% on shares, and that we've kept it consistent. So clearly what you can see here is the final value of your share value will be close to around $484,000 to $518,000. So let's take the higher end, which is $518,000. We've also assumed that you're going to sell the shares, so there'll be about 2% cost to that too. So your total profit in this scenario is $318,000. Now that is a compound annual growth rate of 9.8%. So simply looking at the comparison between property and shares in a summary, in both cases we've invested $200,000 over the 10-year period. Our final value in property is $696,000, whereas in shares it's $518,000. So a clear profit difference of $496,000 in property versus shares, that is $318,000. Compounding growth rate of 13.4% versus 9.8%. The leverage and compounding has worked better because we've got property there for you, whereas in your shares you've only invested your pure cash for yourself, which you've done for property too, but it's up to you to evaluate your risk, which is a better investment. This is not a financial advice, but simply an educational video to show you how a compounding rate could actually change just by actually leveraging on property itself over the same 10-year period as compared to shares. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Wait for the next educational video from us.